I'm going to kick this off, as Larry said, by giving an overview of municipal government in Massachusetts, and especially the structure and the process of government in cities in Massachusetts. We have 351 municipalities in Massachusetts altogether. About 60 of them are cities, including, of course, Watertown. And the rest, so the other close to 300 are towns. So if we focus just on the cities now, the city form of government, there are the two main forms of city government in Massachusetts, the council mayor form of government and the council manager form of government. About 3/4 of the cities in Massachusetts are in the council mayor form, and only about a quarter, or the remaining quarter, are the council manager form of government like we have in Watertown. Again, there's no really strict correlation between the size of the city and which of these forms is used. So I guess, the conclusion that you can sort of take away from that is that we have a variety of different sizes and types of cities using these two different forms of city government. Now, both of these forms of city government have two main parts. They have an executive branch and they have a legislative branch. And the main distinction between the council mayor and the council manager cities is how they choose the head of that first branch, that executive branch. Mayors, of course, are directly elected by the voters. Managers are appointed by an elected council, sometimes usually called a city council, sometimes, as in Watertown, called a town council. And that chief executive officer is an extremely important position. She or he is in charge of the city day to day, in charge of its administration, responsible for procurement, for negotiating contracts, for hiring and supervising city employees, and for many other things about the daily running of the city. If we turn for a second to the legislative branch, both of these forms of city government, the council mayor and the council manager, have obviously an elected legislature, that council. And where things get interesting, and where we see a fair amount of diversity, is in the division of authority between that legislative body and the executive, and the system of checks and balances that exists between them. Not only do we not have one size fits all in terms of state government around the state, but I think there's really no one size at all. There's really a lot of room to shape the city form of government, whichever one is chosen to suit local values and needs.
As you can see, John just referred to this tremendous level of complexity that we have in municipal and local government. In the evolution of urban leadership, traditionally, we always had mayors. The city manager form of government really came out as part of the reform movement for how do we professionalize hiring, firing, contracts that had devolved into kind of cronyism. And the evolution since then that we've seen is people trying very hard to kind of pick what they like about both forms of government. The idea is that you want to really create your most effective team for political leadership and your administrative leadership. Both of them are critical to run your city. If you don't have good political leadership, you're not going to have the accountability that you need. You're not going to have the access you need. And if you don't have good administrative leadership, you're not going to be able to work in a business-like way, which is basically what you're doing. You're running a very large corporation with millions of dollars in your budget.
I thought that the way we started out by sort of focusing on what are sort of core, values or attributes. My hope had been that we would go from that to maybe identifying what particular features of town government or structures or rules or and these may involve things that are not part of the charter at all, just norms or skills are necessary to try to achieve those sorts of objectives or values, and then we would sort of see where that brought us out in terms of what that meant in terms of the overall structure, rather than doing it the other way around. I mean, I think there's been some value to talking about the two forms of government, because it has allowed us to bring in individuals who happen to be identified with those two different forms of government to share their experiences. But I would be open to not focusing sort of on that big question, which I agree, obviously, because this is what I was saying in my remarks, is in some ways a distraction. At the end of the day, we have to be one form of government or the other, but I think it would be better if we would start with what we're trying to achieve and then figure out how which of those governments in which of its many variants works best.
When town manager form of government was first instituted, that there were a lot of things about the mayor form of government that people liked. And in order to address that, the innovation was the council president, who was usually selected or often selected by the council itself, was to be elected by the residents at large. So that is the same way a mayor would be elected. So it creates a political leadership and elevates the council president in a way that is quite unusual. There's really nothing easy about this, guys. We're really created this hybrid, and the devil is in the details. I also just want to reiterate that it really is very possible to create the kind of balance that you want with either form of government. You look at where we are and what we're trying to do, and then you structure your government around how to do that.